Well, good morning. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I think the report it's really worrying, but it corroborates many reports and much research that's come out in the last 20 months, which many academics were warning about from quite early on in 2020. We knew that restricting the lives of children would have an enormous impact on them. And I'm afraid report after report is just, supporting what was being predicted. And I welcome some of the recommendations in the report. So particularly the focus that we need to get back to normal for children, and we need to make sure that there's a broad and rich curriculum for them. So not just about academic catch up. So I think there are some positives in there. But I think, the discussion around loneliness and misery is just very deeply worrying. And of course, the learning loss, 33 million days of school lost for school children in this country is a national disaster.
Ellen, can I just say that I was amazed this wasn't running front and centre of every news bulletin since it came out. The effect that lockdown and the pandemic has had on children is incredible. The development and progress of many of the youngest children was hampered, and some even regressing in basic language and social skills. Children with SEND had additional barriers to overcome, as many were unable to access the support they rely on. The list goes on and on of all the negative impacts. And the Telegraph front page today has pleaded, isn't it, keep the schools open come what may, because they're fearing now schools might not open after the Christmas recess, which adds to those 33 million lost days of education for pupils.
Well, I think that would be absolutely unforgivable, knowing what we know about the risk of COVID to children in a post-vaccinated world. There are countries and US states that have kept schools open for children, and they have been protected. Now, we must put children first. I've been saying this. Many child and adolescent mental health and health specialists have been saying we must follow the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, Article 3.1, which says in all things that we do, essentially, we should put children first. We haven't done that. We continue to not do that. Schools must stay open.
Ellen, what would you say to a lot of the schools are taking it into their own hands now? Even though the government at the moment is saying keep schools open, a lot of them are shutting down. What would you say to those schools? Do you think those schools should be punished and reprimanded for not putting the students first and staying open?
That's a very, I think punishment and coercion is just not the way to run public health or public services. And I think what has been a catastrophe is the clarity of public health messaging. So when we know that there's a 1,000-fold difference in the risk between the elderly and frail and young people, and that has not been adequately communicated, I just don't think that's okay. And I think we need to, in all things surrounding public health, take a holistic approach. And the reality is that for most children, school is the safest place to be for them. And we've seen some utterly tragic, horrific stories emerge in the last few months. And those stories are going to continue to emerge. We've got, putting lockdowns to one side, we've got 100,000 ghost children lost to the system. We don't know where they are, and that feels outrageous in the 21st century.
Professor Ellen Townsend, what would you like to see as we start the new year?
I think we do have to put children first. I think we should protect the vulnerable and the frail, which is what pandemic responses used to look like, and which disaster specialists and emergency planners, have suggested we do. And the countries that have done that, followed the more kind of traditional, tried and tested methods, have actually done very well and protected their young people. So we need to make sure that schools are open. We need to make sure that the frail and the vulnerable are protected. But it's just not okay to close school. Online provision is no substitute. And I really don't think children are going to fare at all well if we close the schools again.